Okay, Stacy, ready to get started?
I'm ready.
All right, great. Well, welcome everyone. We're so excited that you're joining us for today's webinar. We really appreciate you taking this time, and we hope that you'll learn some new things. I know I'm really excited about this webinar in particular. I've been working with Evernote for a couple of years, and I definitely could use some tips and tricks, and so I'm excited to hear what Stacy has to share with us. My name is Ashley Privet. I'm the Executive Director of the JMU Alumni Association, and I graduated from JMU with my master's degree in 2015. Today's webinar is brought to you by the JMU Alumni Association, and we are excited to bring you this alumni webinar program with the goal of providing career-related resources that help you develop your professional self. After today's webinar, you'll receive a follow-up survey, and so we hope that you'll take the time to provide us with some feedback so that we can improve this webinar program and make it something that is a great resource for you. So before I introduce today's speaker, some brief housekeeping notes. If you are participating in the live webinar, your microphones, we hope that your microphones will be muted, and then also we'll have two chat options today. So we have a Q&A and we have a chat. If you have a specific question, please use the Q&A feature, and then to respond to the presenter's feedback, just please use the chat feature. And I'll be monitoring those as we go through, and I'll also take care of the Q&A at the end and present those questions back to Stacy. We would love it if you would tweet during the webinar, and we have a hashtag of #JMUAA webinar. So we'd love it if you'd tweet. Also, Stacy is on Twitter, and so if you'd like to follow Stacy, she's got a lot of great tips on Evernote. She's at Stacy Harmon. The webinar will be recorded, and it can be accessed online about 1 week from today, and we'll send out information about that link so that you can share it with your friends. And it is my pleasure now to introduce our webinar host, which is Stacy Harmon. Stacy is the founder of Harmon Enterprises based in Austin, Texas, and helps companies and individuals get digitally organized and efficient using Evernote. She is an Evernote Business Certified Consultant, Evernote's Marketing Ambassador, and co-author of Untethered with Evernote, Tips and Workflows for Independent Entrepreneurs. Stacy's educational background includes a BS in Communications from James Madison University and an MBA from UC Irvine. In addition to being an Evernote addict, Stacy is a curious person who spends her downtime seeking adventure and great food. Stacy, I am turning it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley, and hello to my fellow Dukes. I'm thrilled to be able to present to this illustrious group, which I'm proud to be part of. So thank you for having me. I am excited to also be talking to you today about one of my favorite topics. As you probably understood from the bio, I'm a lot about Evernote all the time. And I'm going to teach you today some strategies for how you can live file-free with Evernote and really get the most out of this often underutilized tool. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to leave some time at the end for questions, so feel free to queue those up and we'll address those at the end. The first thing I always like to address is, why should you learn from me? You know, why is this relevant? And Ashley covered a lot of it in the bio. I mean, I'm all about Evernote. I'm an Evernote certified consultant. I wrote a book on it. I presented twice at the Evernote conference. Evernote certainly knows who I am. I don't work for Evernote. I just want to clarify that. I am closely aligned with them, but I am self-employed, and I do this every day. So what I'm going to teach you is really what I lived. I'm going to teach you the strategies that I personally have used over the last 6 years to live paperless and file-free in my life and really get the most out of Evernote. And these are the strategies that I work with my clients on all the time to really experience the benefit that Evernote offers in this regard. So I'm speaking from experience. I love this topic, and I'm going to share my best tips and strategies with you right now. So before we begin, I just want to address one critical distinction. When we talk about living paperless, it's a term that often gets thrown around, and I want to really clarify that paperless is not what I'm discussing here, even though it's a big part of the benefit that you can receive from executing the strategies we're going to talk about today. So paperless is actually not my goal in presenting this to you. My goal in living my life is to have access to what I need when I need it. Paperless kind of comes along with that, but my real goal is not to be paperless, is to have access to what I need when I need it. And in reality, my office is with me all of the time as a result of the strategies I'm going to share with you today. It's in my back pocket, accessible from my iPhone because of Evernote and these strategies. I can work from anywhere. This is a picture that I took on the beach in Florida with my MacBook Air and internet access working. The reality is I can work from anywhere because I'm paperless and I don't need paper to be productive. However, I actually love paper. I'm one of those people that has a real tactile association and love of paper. The reality is I carry paper with me all the time. This is a very real picture on the left. In fact, I'm sitting here presenting this webinar to you with a Moleskine notebook right in front of me. I take notes on paper all of the time. Paper hangs from my walls in my house. I use paper. This is a real picture of me sitting at the desk that I'm presenting to you at right now. Sometimes paper is the right tool for the job if you're doing something very visual, for example. Sometimes paper is just required with other people that you collaborate with. So I am not anti-paper. I want to clarify I use paper, and sometimes it's just the right tool. Having said all this, I also live file-free. So this is the marketing picture of the desk that I have, and you can see in the desk, the actual desk, there's 5 full file cabinets there. And when I open my file cabinets, I am down to 1 cabinet of files. And you can see here it's a ream of paper. It's also my passport. It's a social security card. It's things that can't be easily digitized. And it's a lot of papers from, you know, middle school and elementary school that I just can't bear to part with yet. So this is the only file storage that I have in my existing world. The rest of my filing cabinets are used for other things, not file storage. The other part of my perspective that I really want to clarify for this presentation is that I am very Evernote-centric. In my world, everything I possibly can get into Evernote goes into Evernote. It's my central hub and my central portal. You don't have to do that in order to get value out of what I'm talking about today. There'll be bits and pieces of it that you can decide to use Evernote for, but because everything goes into Evernote and I'm so Evernote-centric, I have immense efficiency and transportability because of that. So the more you can move into one system, the more efficient and centralized you're going to be. And because I'm file-free and I'm Evernote-centric, I benefit from this mobility feature. I can work from anywhere. I have accessibility on any device. One of the value propositions of Evernote is it works on both Mac and PC as well as on Android and iPhone. So it's kind of device agnostic. You don't have to be tied to any one device. I have findability. I have over 20,000 notes in my Evernote account, yet I don't fret in the least about being able to find what I'm looking for when I'm looking for it or when I need it. And that's because of Evernote. Their search and findability is amazing. It's industry leading. The other thing is shareability. My data is not locked in Evernote. I'm able to share. Clearly, I can share with Evernote users, but I also have the ability to share any individual note with anyone who has an email address. So it's very easy for me to collaborate or transfer information to other people. And then Evernote's also a cloud-based technology, so that provides me a lot of redundancy. You know, when it comes to speaking about files and being paperless, I don't have to worry about if my house burns down, losing all of that file storage. It's all in the cloud, and I have copies in multiple places. So these are really the advantages to being file-free and pairing that with Evernote-centric. You can get many of these just by moving to fileless, whatever tool you use. But today I'm going to show you how I do that with Evernote. In essence, this solution that I've created gives me access to what I need when I need it. So I happen to have paperless kind of as a byproduct of that, but it's more than I'm fileless, and I'm going to show you how I do that. All right, so let's talk about file-free strategy. Really, I have developed a 3-step strategy. The first thing is I have the right tools. The second thing is I have a digitization plan for each channel that paper comes into my world. And then the third thing is I actually execute my plan. So it doesn't really work if you don't actually do it, but that's a fairly simple thing once you have the first 2 things in place. So this is going to be the structure of today's presentation, and let's kind of go through this one by one. The first is you really have to spend a little bit of time to make sure you've got the right tools in place, okay? You've got the right things to support living a file-free lifestyle. And the thing I want to tell you is that all of these resources I'm going to mention I've got hyperlinks to them on my website. So if you go to harmonenterprises.com and you go to the resources tab and productivity tools, you'll see hyperlinks to all of these tools that I'm going to mention throughout the rest of the presentation. So feel free to take notes, but know that that's always there at any time for you to go back to and access. So the very first tool that's essential to my system is clearly Evernote. So Evernote is a freemium-based software. You can sign up for a free version, but they have 4 tiers of service. You can benefit from a couple of these items that I'm going to talk about today at all levels of the service. So I'll make it clear which strategies you can do at the free level. So you can walk away with efficiencies just by signing up at Evernote.com for an account. They also have a plus version, a premium version, and a business version. The truth is that if you really want to get the lifestyle of file-free that I have, you're going to want to be in the premium tier. It costs $49 a year or $6 a month, and you can go month to month. So if you want to unlock the full feature set, you want to be at the premium level. Business is another option, but you don't get any additional features over premium. Most of you as individual users would want to be in the premium tier. And I'll be clear about that as we move forward with my strategies, which tier you need. But lots and lots of advantages even at the free version, so hopefully you will explore regardless of if you want to pay or not. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing is, this is really the least sexy topic of all software stuff, and that is about making sure your settings are configured. The challenge is, though, if your settings aren't configured right, it cannot work right. So it really is magic when your settings are configured, and I just like to make the point that there's lots of different settings that can occur with Evernote. Every account has account settings, and then the different applications, depending on where you're accessing the device, the Evernote from, whether it's your desktop or your mobile device, those have individual settings for those apps as well. So I advise that everybody kind of combs through their settings and takes a look at them and makes sure that you've got the right settings and information set up so that this really just works and is magic. Once you do that, this type of stuff really becomes fun. So it's one of the things I really advise that you go through. The other essential is you have to have this concept and embrace this concept of inboxes. And you need to do this both in a physical and a digital world. So on the physical side, you actually want to have 2 trays, 2 inboxes. And I'll explain why you're going to want 2 a little later on in the presentation, but you're going to want 2. The other tool that I have found really helpful is a document holder. Something that is maybe plastic or an envelope that you can keep with you, particularly when you travel, either in a briefcase or in a purse. I'll explain what role that plays as we go through here as well. The other is the concept of an inbox in the digital world. And in Evernote, you have the ability to have these notebooks, and I want you to take what's known as the default notebook in Evernote. Often it's called First Notebook, or it has your account name in it, and I want you to rename it to .inbox, and that's a very specific naming convention. The dot kicks the notebook to the top of the list. It's a naming convention hack. And then the inbox gives you the concept of mentally knowing, that you have documents that need to be filed. It's very similar to having an inbox on your desk. If you have documents or notes in there, it tells you that you have some work that needs to be filed. Okay, so I want you to have that digital bucket, much like you have it in a physical world as well. Okay. So those are the essentials in terms of inboxes. Let's now talk about the essentials in terms of scanning solutions. You have to have a scanner, and you have to have a scanner, both a physical scanner and you have to turn your phone into a mobile scanning device. On the physical side, there are hundreds and hundreds of options, and the reality is all of them are going to work. So I'm not telling you to go out and buy a specific scanner. I am going to tell you, though, if you are serious about this and you're going to be very Evernote-centric like me, my absolute favorite scanner is the ScanSnap Evernote Edition scanner. They've also made great improvements to the iX 500, but this is really a very small form factor, highly integrated scanning experience with Evernote, and it's outstanding. I sell a lot of these. I make no money off of it, but I sell a lot of these to my clients that really get into doing the strategy I'm going to talk to you about. But again, any scanner is going to work. Make sure you have access to one. It's going to be required to get your paper into a digital form. Now, on the mobile side, you're definitely going to want to download the Evernote app. no matter if you're on an Android or an iPhone, okay? You can take a photo through the Evernote app, and that is an excellent way to use your phone as a digital scanning device. For those of you who also are iOS, you have another option that is called Scannable, and Evernote owns and develops Scannable. It's a free piece of software, and it obviously integrates really well with Evernote because Evernote owns it. However, it's more than integrating with Evernote. It allows you to also digitize and send data via email or any of the iOS features to other people. So you don't even have to have an Evernote account to really benefit from Scannable, but Scannable is, bar none, the best mobile scanning device that you will find, and you'll love it. If you take nothing else away from this presentation and you're on iOS, you want to download and use Scannable. Here's how Scannable works, just to give you an idea. And a lot of times I often get the question, why would you use Scannable versus Evernote to digitize your information? The reality is, and I'll clarify the use case here, for 99% of my scanning, I use Scannable. And the reason is when you first launch the app, it launches directly to the camera. So it's one click quicker. If I was to use Evernote, I would have to launch Evernote and then pick the camera icon. So I'm doing this frequently enough that I like that efficiency. So I'm using Scannable, okay? When you launch Scannable on the iOS, it brings it right to the camera. You hover over the image that you want to take. You need to make sure that Scannable can see the edges of your document, so putting it on a contrasting background. Same tip for any of you users who are going to be using the Evernote camera to digitize your information. You need to make sure that it can see the edges. And you hold it over the camera, and it'll automatically capture the image. You don't even need to press the button. And then you have the option to save it, and you can save it directly to Evernote, or you can send it, and as you can see here, you can email it to somebody or share it via text or any of the iOS features. All right, so that is a quick overview of Scannable. Definitely try it out if you haven't already. It's a really powerful app that plays a big role in my system, as you'll see moving forward. The other option is to use the camera that is built into the Evernote mobile application. So if you're on an iOS, you can access the camera by the button in the Evernote app. If you're on Android, in the lower right-hand corner, camera will be one of the options that you have there. If it's not displayed, that's a settings issue. Back to my notation about needing to configure your settings. You'll want to be sure that the camera is visible. It'll allow you to take pictures and have them automatically be deposited as notes in Evernote. All right, so those are some of the essentials that you need in order to in fact, those are the essentials you need to execute on the strategies I'm going to discuss next. There's one other thing I want to discuss, though, and that is just things that are also useful in living a file-free life. The first is a mentality of not accumulating paper, okay? So we can make our paper less in our world if we're just not even accepting it. And one of the easy ways to do that is to accept email formats as receipts. So, for example, if I'm at the Apple Store or if I'm at Best Buy, a growing list of places that accept or going digital in their receipts, they'll email me my receipt. So I'm never receiving that paper. And if you are on a paid feature tier of Evernote, and this can be the Plus tier, which is just $2.99 a month, or the Premium, which is the $5.99 a month, you get to activate a unique email account that's associated with your Evernote account. And I can simply, and I do this daily, I forward that receipt into Evernote via my unique email address. So I'm able to centralize all of this information into into Evernote based on that email address. So that's a really useful tool. It's not essential, but I find it very helpful. Also, just the mentality of having paperless billing, so signing up for paperless billing and having an email sent to you so you can then forward it on to Evernote, really useful in the centralization of this information. And there's one other tool that's optional that I absolutely love, and it's by a company called FileThis. And again, this is in my resources tab on my website if you want to look into this further. But here's what FileThis does for me. So let's assume you're in paperless billing and you have AT&T. What does AT&T do when it's time for your bill to arrive? They email you and they say, Stacy, we've got a paperless bill for you. It's ready and processed for you to pay. So you have to go over to AT&T, log in, download the PDF, and do something with it. In my case, I'd have to put it into Evernote, and then I'd pay it and process it. FileList cuts out those steps. I tell FileList what my AT&T login credentials are, and on a regular basis, they go into AT&T and they sweep the account to see if I have any new PDFs or statements. They deliver that PDF directly into Evernote, and they send me an email that says, Stacey, you have a new note in Evernote from AT&T. So they take out the work for me, and I'm able to connect all of my utilities, all of my bank statements, a huge list of common things that email me about paperless billing. You pay a fee for this. The tier that I'm on, I pay $20 a year, but it really is an essential part of my entire system and something to look at if you're serious about really centralizing in Evernote and being paperless. So it's a really helpful utility. It's also optional. All right, so those are the right tools, and those are the tools that I use. And now we're going to talk about how to create a plan for the most common ways we receive paper into our world. And the reality is, I have identified that there are many, many ways that paper enters my life. I'm handed receipts. I take handwritten notes. People hand me business cards. I write on sticky notes. I have files from, previous jobs or current work that I'm doing. The mailbox gets full of mail. There's lots and lots of ways that paper comes into our world. What I have in my head is an actual plan for how I'm going to cope with digitizing that information. And I have a strategy for each of those, and it's not complex. It's very simple. And what I'm going to do with the rest of this presentation is go through the top 5 of those, which really are representative of how paper comes into the world that most of us deal with today. And you'll start to see a pattern in how I cope with them. And my hope for you is that by the end of this, you'll figure out how to apply any paper that comes into your world to one of these strategies that I'm going to show you. So let's start with the first one. The first one's handwritten notes. I'm guessing that if I asked you how many of you like to take handwritten notes, I'd see a lot of hands raised. It's just a lot of times the right tool for the job. It's not always appropriate to take a computer into a meeting. Some people prefer to handwrite notes. It's more visual. They feel they learn better. I'm in that same camp. I work with people all over the nation through the computer, and as I'm on a video Skype call with them, I don't want to be taking notes over the screen. I prefer to write it on a piece of paper. So this strategy I'm going to share with you works for all levels of service. It doesn't matter if you're at the free level or a paid level. You can take advantage of this. The first thing to know is that Evernote has an official integration with Moleskine, and I carry a single notebook with me all the time. This strategy will work with any notebook. You don't have to have the Evernote Moleskine notebook. You can, like me, if you're really a geek about it and like the color and the look and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm often asked, what is the advantage of having the Evernote Moleskine notebook? There are some spiffy integration features, but the reality is it'll work with any paper that you are trying to document or handwrite on. So it could be loose leaf paper, it could be a notebook, but I find a lot of advantage to keeping a single notebook with me wherever I go. I keep it in my purse and it's always with me. My strategy is this. I will take down the notes for the meeting. So this is an example of my Evernote notebook on a client call. I was jotting down some notes and I do that. What I'm committed to is at the end of the session, I take out my camera on my phone, and in my case, I have an Apple, an iPhone, so I'm pulling out Scannable. I take a picture of it, I send it right to Evernote, and my little, just so you guys know what my nomenclature is here, the application that I use, or what I recommend you use, is listed there in an icon form, and then the row below it, I show you exactly where I file that in Evernote so that you can apply that to your own account. So I have Scannable. If you're on Android, you could pull out Evernote. I digitize it, and then I file it directly into that client or project notebook in Evernote. Now, here's the key thing. This is a common theme amongst all of the paper that I'm going to talk to you about. Once you scan the paper, you need to have a system that lets you know that the paper has been scanned, because a lot of times you don't throw away the paper. But if you don't keep track of what you've scanned and what you haven't scanned, it becomes very confusing very quickly. So this is a very, very simple tip, but it's also one of my most effective strategies. Simply draw a line through the pages in your notebook that you have scanned. Okay, it's that simple. And there's a lot of advantages to it because here's the reality of life. I might have a client call, I take a bunch of meetings, and then I move right into the next thing. I didn't have time to scan it. And I take another note on another page. Well, I need to be able to go back and quickly see which pages I still need to digitize when I do have time to digitize them. And the line through it tells me that very quickly, very clearly, and keeps me organized. All right, so that tip alone might be a light bulb moment for some of you, but that can be a huge help to simply knowing what you have scanned and what you haven't. So when I look through my single moleskin notebook, I know what information's in Evernote and I know what information's not simply by flipping through the pages because I can see the line through it. Now, once it's in Evernote, the advantage to me is that I really am having centralized information. So because note-taking is part of my world, here's 2 examples of notes where I'm able to merge the actual handwritten information that I took alongside typed information, hyperlinks to other resources, and checkboxes that really allow me to effectively do work. It's right alongside the project management or the client management that I have to do. So I get a lot of value out of having this centralized information and being able to type right alongside the handwritten notes that I took earlier in the process. Okay? All right, moving on, let's talk about the second way that handwritten notes come into my world. I am sitting at my desk right now, and I have one of these clear plastic lucite scratch pads, and I use it a lot. And what happens is I'll get a phone call, and I'll get a lead, and I'll start jotting down stuff, right? So I grab it at my desk. It's most efficient for me to do that. And my strategy here is I will just jot down notes. I will scan it using likely my desktop scanner right there, the Evernote Scan Snap that I have. Or I might just pull out my phone and digitize it with Scannable or the Evernote app. And then I'm filing it directly into the client or project notebook that it's relevant for. Okay, so in this case, the difference between the handwritten note and the scratch paper is I'm actually tossing the paper in this case because there's no need to retain it. It's already in Evernote. So the benefit for me here is that Evernote will index and what's called OCR, character recognize, any image that you put into Evernote. And this, again, is for all levels of Evernote, even the free level. If you take a picture of something, including your handwriting, it's going to be able to find it in search and retrieve. So if I put in the phrase for Ethan, it pulled up my notes that I quickly took when that client called me. And I can actually find and retrieve that information when it's there. So that's just one of the advantages to actually having my handwriting in Evernote. I can find it, okay? And think about that contrasting to when you have reams of notebook papers and notes and tablets of paper and having to sort through and try to retrieve or find the notes that you took a month ago. It's a little more challenging. The other benefit is I have simplified proposal creation. So when I'm jotting down those notes, which typically are leads, I can then take those initial notes and start to transition them into, checklists of things that I need to do, an address in a quote that I might be doing for a client, okay? So I find that highly functional, and it's worked really well for me, and hopefully you can extract a use case for yourself out of the same process. All right, let's move on to Post-it notes, another way that handwritten notes often come into our world. I'm guessing there's some of you on the call that have a love affair with Post-it notes, much like I do. And this is going to work with all levels of service. Evernote has an official integration with Post-it. Again, there's some snazzy integration features. This is going to work with all colors of Post-it notes, but there's certain Post-it note colors that you can auto assign to be filed into a particular notebook when you take a picture of them. So there are some snazzy parts and pieces. As you can see, Evernote will automatically kind of crop and rotate and improve the contrast of the image that you're taking. That's part of the integration as well. So some neat things for those of us that are Post-it note lovers. This picture often a lot of people identify with. So the strategy for that you need information stick notes. It seems often when you're, lunch or away from the office, and you're like, I just need that. It's sitting there at my desk on my monitor. Here's the strategy. Take out Scannable or Evernote app on your phone, digitize the picture, file it in a place where you're going to be able to get it in Evernote, and then again, put a little checkbox. Take that pencil that's in the cup right next to it and put a little checkbox in the upper right-hand corner of it so you know you digitized it. I'm happy to have you leave the sticky note there on your monitor. The key is you want to have a visual cue that you've added it to Evernote and it's digitized so that you can access it when you're away from your desk. Okay, simple strategy, but also really powerful and effective. All right, so that's handwritten notes. Hopefully you took away something there that can really work for you. Let's move on to a receipt strategy, which I think probably everybody can identify. How many of you have a couple of notes stuffed, or receipts stuffed in your wallet or in your purse or sitting at your desk, or you have an envelope of receipts that you deposit to your accountant? You know, receipts are a reality in our world, and they really help us, particularly if you're, in business, to make yourself a little audit proof if you can keep your receipts, right? This strategy is going to work for all levels of service, and the reality is I am digitizing my receipts all the time, and I don't maintain any of them, all right? My strategy for doing this is there's actually a key question, super simple, that my mind is processing every time somebody hands me my receipt. And that key question is, am I sitting? Okay? I have trained my brain to go through this process and decide, am I sitting or not? Very simple. The answer is yes. I am pulling out Scannable or my phone and using the Evernote app, and I am taking a picture of it and I am sending it directly to Evernote to a notebook that I have called Raw Scans. So I'm centralizing all of my receipts in one notebook in Evernote called Raw Scans. Now, you're sitting more often than not when you receive a receipt. You're sitting when you're at a restaurant. You're sitting when you're at the car wash. The answer to this is often yes, and I'm able to digitize it on the spot. The receipt never makes it out of the restaurant for me. Now, there's cases too when you receive pieces of paper that are receipts that it's just not feasible to scan it on the spot, or you're not sitting down, maybe when you're out shopping or you're at the grocery store. If the answer to that is no, or you're traveling, that's another great use case for it. It's not necessarily easy to scan something right when write the receipt right when you get it at the airport for the luggage fee. That's where the document handler comes into process, or the document pocket. This document pocket creates a great centralized spot for you to put any paper or receipts that you should scan when you have the time, okay? So instead of stuffing them in your wallet, stuff them in this specific use case document pocket, and then when you have time, say, let's go back to my airport example, they hand you a receipt for your checked luggage. When you're sitting at the gate, you can then pull it out of the document pocket, pull out your phone, pull out Scannable, and send it directly to Raw Scans, and then toss it or draw a checkbox in the corner of it, and you'll know that you've scanned it. The other thing you can do is collect those, and maybe you want to collect all of your scanned receipts when you're traveling, and next time you get back to your office, you're going to batch scan them, pull out your document pocket, and boom, send them through your scanner and directly into Evernote. No matter if I'm sitting or not, the end result is my receipts end up in a notebook called Raw Scans in Evernote, so everything is centralized, and the paper gets tossed as soon as I've done that. All right, so here's real examples. You can see my desk right there, and a couple of things on the left. Notice my Evernote ScanSnap, how it's not large. It doesn't take up a lot of space, and that's open. I can close it so that it's a lot smaller. But you can see here I have my 2 inboxes. Back to that, the essential elements that I was saying that you need to make the system work. You actually need 2. You need one that is to scan, and you need one that is kind of an outbox. Meaning you've actually already processed it. So same concept as drawing a line through the data. You want to make sure that you have a process for knowing that you have scanned that information. Now, the reality in my world is often I'll put it in my inbox and then I'll batch scan it when I have time. And in my world, it goes right into the trash can. However, I know that in a business setting, a lot of times that paper needs to get passed along to someone else. So that's where the second in that outbox becomes really handy. You know you've scanned it, and then you can put it into the to be passed along to someone else box. And then on the right, you can see this is the reality of me doing some grocery shopping, going to the Home Depot, getting some gas in a day. I just pulled out my crinkled receipts when I was at my office, and I went ahead, pulled out Scannable, and voila, the paper's done, and I tossed it. okay? So that's kind of how I operate on a daily basis. So the benefit here, again, is going to be find, and again, all tiers of service are going to work. If I get the receipts in there, how many of you are ever like, what did I spend that that money on, that $9 on, or that $24 on, when you're trying to reconcile your files? Well, you can just shoot that number into the search in Evernote, and Evernote's going to be able to retrieve that receipt because it indexes the contents of all pictures that you put in there, and it can read handwriting, assuming it can read your handwriting. That's the caveat. But, you know, it's going to work even for the $24 example you see over on the right-hand side. So finding and retrieving data when I need it, a real advantage. The other advantage is I'm able to really collaborate and keep a running conversation. So Evernote has high, strong collaboration features, and no matter what tier of service you are on, you can share a notebook with any other Evernote user. And my bookkeeper, I insist, uses Evernote. So I give her access to my receipts, and she uses that in reconciling with my QuickBooks system. You know, I'm not actually using QuickBooks, I use Xero, but you know, whatever system you use, you can have a running conversation. And in this case, you can see how I told her how to code it, and then she couldn't find it, so she logged it as cache, and we're able to have that conversation right alongside the document that has context to what we're discussing. And then all of this in the future can be archived for tax purposes as well. So really, really powerful stuff when you start to bring in the collaboration element of it as well. The other benefit to this is I love this example. So I shop at the Banana Republic, and I had been at Banana Republic, and it's about a 20-minute drive from my house. And I had been there, and I went shopping, and I bought something. And the next weekend, I was in there, and the item was 50% off. And I was so annoyed because I didn't want to drive home, go get the item, which still had the tag on it, bring it up, get a price adjustment. I just did a search from my phone for Banana Republic. I did a sort by date created, which kicked the most recent Banana Republic receipt up to the top of my list, pulled it up, and she was able to scan my digitized receipt and give me a price adjustment right there on the spot. So I saved $67 and about an hour of time going back and getting the item and then having to drive back up and then return home. So that was more than the cost of premium software for the year, and this kind of thing happens a lot because I have my receipts digitized, and I have yet to find a vendor who won't be able to either actually scan the barcode or input it right there on the spot. So huge advantage that actually has cost savings and time savings right away. The other advantage is I'm self-employed, and when I first started this journey, I was paying my taxes October 15th. I was extending and paying my taxes. Can anybody identify with that? It was stressful all year long to get my taxes organized and over to my CPA. This year, after having instituted my bill-keeping process, which all starts with centralizing my receipts in Evernote based on the strategies I've just shown you, my taxes went to my CPA February 19th. So a huge, huge difference in terms of the time frame and the mental stress level, all as a result of this step one of my process. All right, let's move on to a third strategy, business card strategy. So for those of you that are in sales, this is going to be really appealing to you. Now, I do want to say you have to be on the premium or business tier of service with one caveat. If you're an iPhone user, you can actually, there's a loophole right now. You can use Scannable to do this. I don't anticipate they're always going to allow it to be free in Scannable, particularly because it's a paid feature in Evernote, but it's a loophole right now if you're on iOS. This is the only paper that I actually proactively use the Evernote Camera for. The rest I use Scannable for, but I do use the Evernote Camera for this particular tool. And again, you'll want to be a premium or business level of service to get the full advantage of it. So when I get a business card handed to me at, say, a networking event, I'm opening the Evernote Camera. I'm opening Evernote app. I'm clicking on the camera feature. I'm hovering over the business card, and this is all automated. You don't have to actually click on it. You want to be sure that, again, Evernote can see the edges of your business card. And it will auto snap a picture of the card. Now, for Android users, you might need to actually swipe at the bottom once you launch the camera over to the business card option. How this feature works does differ depending on which device you're on, but the overall feature set is fairly similar. Evernote's going to actually snap a picture of the card, and then this is the cool part. It's going to auto-extract the information from there and put it into data fields, okay? I have it do that, and then when I save it, I'm saving it directly to Evernote to a notebook that I call business cards. So I'm centralizing all my business cards into one location. Now, there's a couple of really key advantages to using this feature, which brings in the benefit of the premium membership. Evernote has an official integration with LinkedIn, okay? So they replaced what used to be Card Munch, and what Evernote does is when they take a picture of the card and they extract the email address from the card, they behind the scenes go over to LinkedIn and they index LinkedIn and try to find that email address that you just scanned. If they find a match for it, they will pull in that person's image as well as contact information and populate that in the contact that you're saving in Evernote. They'll also give you the opportunity to automatically send a LinkedIn request directly to that person at the time you save the card. So instead of taking their card, having to go home, have a stack of cards there that I need to follow up with, search LinkedIn for that person and send them a LinkedIn request, instead, I'm taking a picture of their card at the event and sending them a LinkedIn request right there. And by the time I get home, I'm having a bunch of new LinkedIn connections. So great value, particularly for those of you that are in sales. The other thing that's really advantageous is that, again, if your settings are turned on properly and you have location services turned on, and by the way, in the last feature set, you have to be logged into LinkedIn. That's also a settings feature. Evernote will geolocate and assign metadata to the location where you took the image of the card. So if you get in the habit of actually snapping the card at the time that you are in the location, it will allow you to show on a map where you picked the card or where you took a picture of the card. Now, on iOS only, on Mac and iOS, not on the PC, there's something called Atlas View. So if you remember where you were when you had a conversation, but you just can't remember that name, how many of you have had that happen? You're like, I had this great conversation at this networking event with that person, I just can't remember their name, but I remember that I was at the Moscone Center and in this room. You can actually zoom into the map and pull through to the card that you pictured there. So really kind of neat, again, for those of you who this is an important use case for. And then also, Evernote does allow you to add those contacts or the extracted information directly to your contacts. Really kind of neat, get out of the data entry of having to add it to your contacts. So I like that feature a lot. You can turn that on or off on a contact-by-contact basis. And then if you're in iOS, you can actually choose to auto-send an email to that person at the same time that you save the card. I have found this immensely helpful in getting feedback from people that I meet at networking events. I got to say, like 50% of them will respond to it and just say it was nice to meet you too. So just think about the impression you're making with this type of process as opposed to the manual way of taking a card and then having to do something and have work to do when you get back to the office. So I find this really an improved strategy. All right, let's move on to the last one for today, which is about file storage strategy. So those are 3 ways that you can, eliminate specific types of paper that you deal with on a daily basis. But if a lot of you, like me, might go, well, I've already got a bunch of files that are here. What do I do about all of that? So my advice is to look at this as a line in the sand moment, okay? Look at digitizing your paper as a process, all right? And start today on with not accumulating more paper. So this is what I did 4 years ago. I said, oh, I get the value of what Evernote can do, and I see how having my stuff digitized, whether it's my handwritten notes, which is actually where I started, or my receipts or the things I get in the mail, I'm going to be committed to not accumulating more from today on. And once I got my arms around that, then I decided to tackle all of that back storage and files that I had in my desk, okay? So first of all, think of it as a process. And then when you're ready to tackle that back storage, there's a great tip. You'll want to pay for a level of Evernote service so that you get this unique email address that I was talking about and earlier in the presentation. And don't forget that those scanners that you have in your office that are high-speed scanners allow you to like scan the documents and automatically send them to different email addresses. So why not add your Evernote, your unique Evernote email address to the scanner so that when you scan it, it's shooting the data directly off to Evernote. It's a huge time saver when you're trying to do a backlog of scanning. And then in my case, I just went ahead and I tossed the information. This was the strategy I used as I started to pare down my back storage and get it consolidated and centralized in Evernote. So hopefully, for some people, often when I give this presentation, that's a light bulb moment for them. They realize they can save a lot of time by not having to save that PDF to a drive and then upload it to a different location. All right, the benefit in doing that and tackling the back storage is you're going to have reduced storage costs. Don't forget there's an actual, tangible cost to having storage, whether or not it's you need more square footage in your home because you have offices, have a desk that needs to have file folders, or you're actually having off-site storage or square footage at an office as well. And then this is the least tangible but the most important that I've really experienced. There's this mental freedom from not having yourself bogged down with a lot of this paper and back data that you hardly are ever referencing. Also having the mental freedom to know you can access it anytime you need it. This process has allowed me to really simplify my life. I have quite happily pared down my life into a 550 square foot situation where I have plenty of space and what I need. And this has been a key part of it. So I really love the mental freedom and emotional, like almost stability that this has provided me. It really can be very life-changing. All right, I've given you now several different strategies that you can deploy. The third thing is you have to actually do it. So my advice to you is to take one step at a time and start small. So I've given you a lot here. I know I've given you a lot, but something probably resonated more than others. For most people, they gravitate towards the receipt strategy. They say, okay, yes, that's actually something that I can do. So I want you to pick one channel, receipts, or maybe business cards or your big, hiccup in your paper. Choose one or two channels and get the right tools. Get those desk inboxes, one that's to scan and one that's to go out. Get the right parts and pieces in place, and don't worry about having to scan instantly, but make sure that if you're not scanning instantly, you allocate some time, maybe Friday morning for half an hour, you're going to time block to batch scan your information, and you're going to check off that you got it into Evernote so that you have clarity that you have digitized it. The other thing is, seek support in this. The first is find a fileless buddy. If you decide that your one channel's receipts and you're at work and you go to lunch with a similar group of people all the time, hold yourself accountable for changing your behavior with your fileless buddy, where you're like not going to walk out of the restaurant until it's scanned. I mean, it's really about just getting in the habit of doing that, or use each other to get support with that. Evernote has a lot of meetups all over the world, and they have a community calendar on their website. If you just Google Evernote Community Calendar, you can see what events are scheduled in your neck of the woods and find other people that are connected to that. I know that in Austin, I host the Austin Evernote User Meetup Group, and I post all our events there so that anyone who's interested in what's going on with Evernote in the Austin area can join. I also have a series, you've seen it probably on the footer of many of these slides. If you pull out your cell phone right now and you text my last name, H-A-R-M-O-N, to 66866, that will get you subscribed to a free 21-day coaching program that I have that supports and gives you details about how to execute a lot of what I've discussed here. I'm not going to be using the service for a lot longer, so if you're interested in this, I'd encourage you to sign up quickly so that you can get in. But again, there's no cost for that, and it'll repeat and walk you through hopefully some behavior change that will help you to execute on all of this. And then a lot of people decide, there's a lot here and I know I need a coach, and this is a lot about what I do as a consultant. I work with businesses and individuals to help them become more efficient, putting in practice the things that I've talked about here that are very Evernote-centric. So let's review kind of what we have discussed today. You got to get the right tools in place, a physical scanner and a mobile scanning app. Gave you the options for that are my favorites. You want to have a digitization plan. Pick 1 or 2 channels and also observe, become more aware of ways that paper is entering your world, right? How is paper coming to you? And then make a plan for how you're going to get that digitized and documented that you put it into your digital world in Evernote. And then execute your plan. You want to decide from today forward, I'm not going to accumulate any more receipts, and get support in whatever manner is going to suit you best. I'm going to give you guys, before I get into the Q&A, let me just give you a couple resources and opportunities that I think can help you out. The first is I mentioned that all of the tools that I discussed are available on my website under the resources productivity tools. So just go to harmonenterprises.com if you want to get details off to that. After I give this presentation, some people decide, you know, Stacy, I want to work with you. I'm interested in your consulting services. If you want me to contact you after this, just fill out the harmonenterprises.com/contact me form, and a real simple form, and I'll be in touch with you. So you can express your interest if you have a higher degree of interest in my services and what I do there. So again, harmonenterprises.com/contact me, and I'll be in touch with you. And then I mentioned my free, file-free 21-day email support series. You're going to get an email from me every 3 days for 21 days to help you actually deploy and execute through even some of the settings that I discussed and how important all of that is. To start that, you simply text Harmon to 66866. And again, you're going to want to do this quickly because I'm not going to be keeping this service in an ongoing basis, and would love to have you part of it. You can always unsubscribe at any time. And then the last thing is I talked to you about how important the desktop settings are. how important the settings are to making this all work. And one of the things that I am doing is developing a series of guides. And currently I have the Evernote desktop settings guide for Mac. I'm developing the PC one as well. On the sign up page, there's a place where you can express your interest if you want the PC. But I'm offering a 25% discount to any of you who would like to purchase before the end of the month. You just use the code June16 and you'll see that at my website. So with that, Ashley, I think I've left a couple of minutes maybe for some Q&A, but this is my contact information if anybody would like to be in touch, and certainly I'll be happy to answer any of those tweets that you have given during this session. But I guess we can move into Q&A, Ashley, if there are any.
Yeah, definitely. We have a few questions already. Okay. So one question that came up was in terms of the notebook strategy, how, as you create these places to put all of the data that you bring in, how many notebooks is too many? You have 20,000 notes, so how do you organize those within your notebooks?
So that's a great question. Depending on your level of service, there is a notebook limit, which is for 250 notebooks per account. Unless you're on the business tier, it balloons up to about 5,000 notebooks. So here's the problem. There's not a right or wrong answer to that. You need to know what the constraint is, and then you need to organize your account in a way that that works for what you're trying to do. I'm very notebook heavy. I don't mind creating a notebook to organize around what I'm trying to organize around. So some of the key notebooks that I discussed in this presentation, I wouldn't be shy about creating them. Don't be shy about creating notebooks. If you reach a 250 notebook limit, you've been using the system a lot and you're ready to evolve into a different structure, and data is very easy to move around in Evernote.
Great. One quick question was, do you have one account or do you use one for personal and one for work?
So I do have one account, but I'm on the business tier. So if you are a business user, Evernote actually allows you to kind of have a personal and business account in one interface. Really, the data ownership's different. The business, which in my case is Harmon Enterprise, which I own, right, has its own set of data, and then Stacy Harmon, the individual user, has her own data. So I'm able to do that in one account. If you're, unless your business if your business is Evernote-centric, you should be on the business tier so that your users, you retain the data that your users have as they come and go. So in my case, it's one account using the business tier of Evernote.
Great. We got a question asking, are you concerned that at some point down the road Evernote may not exist and that you would lose your data?
So it's a great question. It's certainly one that everybody needs to ask when they're investigating systems. And it's certainly something that you deal with any software you choose to participate in. In my case, I had done my due diligence and I feel comfortable with Evernote for a variety of reasons. One is they have three very upfront rules of data, which you can see for yourself at their website. Go to evernote.com/security. And one of those is that your data is yours and your data can be exported. So it's possible for me to export my data at any time in mass into an HTML format or an Evernote format. And HTML can be easily imported or read by a variety of database programs. So I've personally decided I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, great. And along those, a similar line, I guess, in terms of security, what about the risk of storing things in the cloud and any kind of hacking issues?
So Evernote's on par with the leading solutions up there. And again, I did my research. You know, it is a risk when you move to any cloud-based technology, right? Mm-hmm. But they're in the business of, the benefits outweigh that risk. And they have absolutely no incentive to not, you know, be up on par with what all of the leading industry information is. So again, I refer you to evernote.com/security to research yourself and decide if it suits you, but I have found it to be acceptable.
Great. Okay, so we also had a question about that Evernote, we noticed, is connected to a lot of different other products and companies, so it's integrated with those. Aside from those integrations, what are the advantages of using Evernote over, say, another similar product like OneNote?
So that's another great question. And by the way, I wanted to address one other thing on the security. Evernote also offers two-factor authentication as well, especially at the paid tiers. So you have, you know, that option as well, which I would encourage anybody who's concerned about to utilize. So in terms of the competition, I mean, obviously I'm in the Evernote camp versus OneNote camp. I'm not as familiar with OneNote and what it offers, but some of it's going to be if you're a Microsoft shop or not. The other thing, when I give presentations on Evernote to OneNote users, the feedback I often get is Evernote's more flexible. So that seems to be a leading advantage to what Evernote offers. And the clipper, which we didn't really cover here, but the web clipper and the ability to collect information appears to be stronger in Evernote. So if your workflow is very oriented towards collecting information and centralizing information from a variety of sources, particularly the web, Evernote may appeal to you more.
Great. There was a technical question about when you forward from the email address, the Evernote email address that you get, do the documents go into one folder, or is there a way to control where they go?
So by default, they're going to go into what's called your default notebook, which at the very beginning I advocated you rename to .inbox. So that's where it goes by default. It is possible to override that. It depends a lot on which email client you're in. If you're in Outlook, they actually have a really strong integration that will allow you to file it directly from the Evernote location. And you don't even have to use the forward to email. They have actually like a clipping button that allows you to convert any emails into a note and file it immediately directly from Outlook. From Gmail, you can use the web clipper to achieve the same thing. In practicality, you also can do it. Here's the technical answer is you can actually append the subject line with a hashtag or an @ symbol to either assign a tag or auto-file it. In practicality, I never do that. I forward the emails, and then I use a key command to file my notes in the notebook. It's very, very easy to move information around once it gets into Evernote. So that's my workflow, and I do that, you know, many times a day, and that I find to be most efficient.
Great. All right, we have two more questions. I think one quickly, which was, is there a calendar feature at all in Evernote and a way to integrate with something like Outlook?
So there's no calendar built into Evernote. There are a reminder feature, so you're still going to use your calendar. And they have many, many integrations with task management apps and calendars. So you would want to, you can go to the Evernote website and see who their integration partners are, and they're extensive. So certainly there are easy ways to create that kind of integration, but it is not a calendar in itself.
Great. All right, and our last question was, you know, we have the ability to tag our notes. Do you have any tips on conventions that you use for tagging your notes?
Oh, so you saved a good one for the last one, but it's also a big discussion. I'm actually not a big fan of tags. I think naming conventions and notes are much better. So I would keep your tags minimal, and I would use tags for only, here's what I find. I find that people use tags because they want to be able to find and retrieve information. And Evernote search is so powerful that if you simply put the tag word anywhere in your note, you're going to be able to find and retrieve your information. So start there because tags can get unruly really, really fast. If you're going to use tags, I would suggest you pick a non-growing set of terms. So often tags are really well used for status, like you could say something goes from active to pending to dead to completed. That's a good use of tags. So keep it concise and structured. That would be my tip for tags.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. You've shared a lot of really great information with us. I hope that all of you out there who are already using Evernote have gotten some tips, and for those of you who are thinking about it, you have some ideas about how you might get started. So we really appreciate your time today. Stacy, you did a great job on sharing things with us. If your question wasn't answered, or if you have a question, you think of something later, I'm sure if you tweeted Stacy, she'd be happy to answer that question. And we really appreciate it. You will be receiving a survey this afternoon, and we hope that you'll give us some feedback to help us improve this program. But again, thank you so much, Stacy, and thanks so much for our participants today. We hope you have a great day, and go Dukes.
Go Dukes.
All right, thank you.
So I'm still here, but
yeah,
hopefully, yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stacy. Great job.
Oh, my pleasure. So I will, I never got any of the emails, so would it be possible for you to email me when it gets posted?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad it went well. And it looks like we had a pretty good turnout.
We did. Great turnout.
About 50 people or so? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much, Stacey.
Bye.
Bye-bye.